Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I have been putting off filming this video because I just don't want to do it. I feel like I've moved on from summer reading. I'm on to fall reading. But I feel like my YouTube channel can't move on until I make this video. I will intersperse the bingo board so you can see how each of these books placed on my bingo board for the Boston Public Library Summer Reading Challenge. Deep Cuts by Holly Brickley. This book introduced me to the concept of a fun audiobook because prior to this I was mostly reading nonfiction audiobooks, which I enjoy, but it is so fun to just have a plot heavy entertaining audiobook going on while you're doing the dishes or you're out on your walk. It's just a fun experience. So even though I personally found the main characters in this book kind of insufferable and I wasn't really rooting for them, I thought the audiobook experience itself was fun. Next, I read House of Fury by Evelio Rosero. This takes place in the 1970s in Bogota, Colombia, at the wedding anniversary party of this influential magistrate and his wife. They're kind of throwing this big family party. They have several daughters. And there's a lot of moving parts to this book that made it a really engaging read. There's just a ton of different storylines and characters. It felt very dynamic, which I think I'm finding I really enjoy in a book, like when it's not too inside just one person's perspective, but rather kind of has this God's eye view of a multifaceted dynamic situation playing out. This book definitely had that. It was very dark humor, kind of messed up and violent at parts, and also had some pretty interesting just political commentary on this era of Colombia's history, which I don't know too much about, but I would like to learn more. Rising Storm by Erin Hunter, another installment in the Warrior Cats series. I don't remember too much from this other than it was just building up a ton of shit for the next installment, I'm assuming. And also one of my favorite characters died. I listen to these on audiobook exclusively now because it's so fun and dramatic, and I love how the narrator does all the voices. Next, I read A Sharp Endless Need by Mac Crane. This is a coming-of-age novel about a young girl who's super into basketball. She plays high school basketball, and she's kind of finding herself as a young queer person in a not-so-accepting environment, and one of the ways that she's exploring this identity is by having a very intense, not very communicative, and sometimes erotic friendship with a fellow basketball playing young girl who shares this passion for the game. And I felt like my favorite part about this book was how intense those feelings they had for each other were, the secret yearning Piglet. And I wrote that this was captivating like watching a car wreck, because it's about this woman who, on the eve of her wedding or not the eve, but 2 weeks before her wedding to the love of her life, her dream man, he reveals this absolutely life-altering secret, and they don't reveal what the secret is. You're just watching her unravel and decline. That can be somewhat captivating, like I said, but at the end I was like, what was it all for? Why did we watch this woman suffer for what, you know? I was hoping for maybe some more poignant commentary on class. I feel like there could have been something explored there, because the main character and her betrothed come from like very different backgrounds, and it's kind of like alluded to her feelings about that, but I felt like it didn't go deep enough. And there's also some really great food writing in this, because the main character is a cookbook editor and she also loves to cook, and I did enjoy that part of it. Speaking of food writing, the next thing that I read was Kitchen Confidential: Adventures in the Culinary Underbelly by Anthony Bourdain. This is a really good memoir. I feel like a lot of the times celebrities will write memoirs just for the hell of it, but I'm like, if you don't have anything to say, I don't really want to hear about like your whole ass life story, you know? So I really enjoy memoirs that have a clear theme that they're exploring, or a clear narrative that they're exploring. And I feel like this one does, because it's all about the underbelly of the culinary world, and all of the really interesting people that Bourdain has worked with and encountered in his professional experience, and also like his journey to becoming the chef that we know him as. And I think he has a really great writing voice. Like, he has a lot of humor in his writing that's kind of crass and raunchy, but it's like so him. I listened to this on audiobook, and he narrated it, and I loved it. The next book I read was Siblings by Bridget Ryman. This is about a young woman living in a pre-unification era Germany, Berlin. She lives in East Berlin, and she has a very like idealistic view of socialism and what it can do for working class people that's just like not matching up with how she's seeing it in practice. It also explores this like really complicated sibling dynamic she has going on, where her older brother has moved from East Berlin to West Berlin and is kind of living a more Western capitalistic lifestyle, and her younger brother is feeling disillusioned by socialism and is feeling called to also move to West Berlin, and she really doesn't want this to happen. This was kind of like a little bit of a slow start for me, but I ended up really loving it. Next, I read A Language of Limbs by Dylan Hardcastle. It has a very interesting dual point of view narrative structure, where you're following these two women who have chosen to approach their queerness in a very different way. Was interesting, but it also kind of got confusing, because I didn't really feel like either of the narrators were like distinct enough for me to be able to tell them apart very clearly. The next book I read is The Gilda Stories by Jewel Gomez, which I've talked extensively about in a past reading vlog. This was a sapphic vampire novel that spans centuries and even reaches into the future. It was great. I loved it. Moving on, we had a disappointment. This was Salvage by Madeleine Roux. This is an alien horror book, and I feel like it kind of gave away the mystery really early on. So there was no like suspense and a building of that like terrified feeling. So it was just kind of boring for me. Poets Square, a memoir in 30 Cats by Courtney Gustafson. And I follow Poets Square Cats on social media, and I saw that she had a memoir, so I was interested to listen to it. And I thought it would be mostly about the cats, the feral cat colony that she takes care of. But it ended up just being about like what happens to cats and also humans when systems that were designed to protect them fail or just simply aren't there. And one thing I noticed about this was that a lot of the stories are often just like left open-ended. Many of the problems that she's like witnessing and interacting with aren't solved yet, and she wasn't trying to like pose herself as some sort of like savior that's coming into these communities and helping people out. She simply was just approaching this from like her own learnings and observations, and also a deep love for cats, which, yeah, this book is gonna make you cry if you love cats. I began my obsession with the Bloody Jack audiobooks. I listened to Curse of the Blue Tattoo by L.A. Meyer on audiobook, and I can't remember the narrator's name, but she does such a good job like doing all of the different accents for all the different characters and just like presenting the main character Jackie in like the most fitting way, like her capturing her fiery personality and sense of humor. I just love listening to these audiobooks. And yeah, this one was a lot of fun. What We All Long For by Dionne Brand. One thing I loved about this book is how Dionne Brand writes about cities and like urban landscapes. You can tell how much she loves Toronto. And I feel like Toronto was actually the main character of this book. And it was just really cool to hear her describe like all the various like pockets of like immigrant communities and in the city. The language is so accessible, but it's like so impactful. The fact that Dionne Brand is a poet first and foremost really shows in her like expertise of using language. This Is How You Lose the Time War by Max Gladstone and Amal El-Motar. This is a really interesting novel that is unlike anything I've ever read before. It's about these two like secret agent operatives that are traveling through time to fulfill the agendas of their respective empires that they are acting for. They end up falling in love, and their love story kind of like spans time and space. It takes some like letting go. You're not going to understand everything they're saying, and I don't think you're meant to. It's just kind of part of the atmosphere. Under the Jolly Roger, which was a great book for me to read because I was feeling very inspired by like pirates and pirate media. And then I read In the Belly of the Bloodhound, which I liked a lot less because it was just like a weird concept. But I'm not going to get too much into the plot details because I don't really need to recount this whole entire series to you. Next, I read Hot Girls with Balls by Benedict Nguyen. Fun novel about these two trans lesbian volleyball players who are in a relationship with each other that's like very online. What it's like to be a famous trans person on social media and some of the weirdness that comes with that. Like there are some chapters in this book that are written as if they are a comment feed, and it's just like, you know, comment after comment, just like random dialogues that people are having underneath a post, and how some of those comments can be very like gratifying and encouraging, but a lot of them can be fucked up. The last book I read was Compound Fracture by Andrew Joseph White. I listened to this on audiobook. This is a young adult novel about this young trans boy who is growing up in Appalachia, comes from like a long line of miners as well as people who are really involved with unionizing efforts and labor strikes. This is a wild ride right from the start. Like, at some points I'm like, damn, this is a young adult novel. Like, this shit is intense. I was stressed for this entire novel because the main character is truly going through it and trying to save his own ass as well as like the people that he cares very deeply about in his life. And it definitely doesn't shy away from like violence and gore. That was my summer reading. I am so glad that I finally recorded this so I can just like get it up and get it out of the way. Let me know what you're reading right now, and I will hopefully see you in another video soon, but who the fuck knows.